The other paper also indicates that the House would tackle subsidiary legislation and statutory reports. My name is Chigondi Manjawina, and we cross over to the chamber for more details. Stay tuned.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness has appointed the office of the rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we ask you to behold with your abundant favors your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this land. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of this country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
General business, communication from the chair.
Good afternoon, honorable members, and welcome back. I wish to welcome you all back to the plenary session after a 2-week suspension during which cluster committees were scrutinizing the budget estimates as presented by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs on Friday, 28th February 2025. May I appeal to all spokespersons on finance, chairpersons of budget committee, cluster committee chairpersons, and all honorable members who wish to contribute to the debate on the budget estimates to be ready with their responses in order to ensure that the flow of business is not disrupted when your time comes for presentation. As I reported in my initial communication on Monday, 17th February 2025, soon after this communication, the Leader of the House will move a motion to suspend the Standing Order 138, Part 3, to allow debate to take place for 9 days instead of 14 calendar days. This motion will allow the House to pass the budget before the end of this financial year. Furthermore, I wish to inform you that it pleased His Excellency the President, Dr. Lazarus Makathe Chakwera, in exercise of his powers conferred upon him by Section 94(1) of the Constitution of the Republic of Malawi, as read with Section 93(1) of the said Constitution, to appoint into Cabinet the following: Honorable Vitumbiko Mumba, Minister of Trade and Industry; Honorable Peter Dimba, Minister of Labor; and Honorable Baba Stephen Malondera, Deputy Minister of Transport and Public Works. The appointments were effective from 26 February 2025. May I take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt congratulations and wish you success during the entire period you'll be serving the people of this nation. Thank you very much for your attention, and that marks the end of my communication.
General business, item 2B, motion to waive Standing Order 138, subsection 3.
Honorable Leader of the House.
Good afternoon, Right Honorable Speaker, and good afternoon, honorable members. Madam Speaker, I rise this afternoon to move that, considering that understanding Order 138 subsection 3, debate on the budget estimate is supposed to last for a period of not less than 14 calendar days. And if the House is to adhere to this law, it will not be possible to pass the budget by 31st March 2025, which is the end of the financial year. I beg to move that Standing Order 138 subsection 3 be waived in order to allow debate on the budget estimates to last for 9 days. I beg to move.
Thank you, Honorable Leader. Honorable members, I now put the motion as presented by the Honorable Leader of the House. Those of that opinion say aye. Those of the contrary view say no. The ayes have it, and the motion is carried.
Item 3A, government business, budget motion, responses guided by Standing Order 191, subsection D.
We'll now go to the spokesperson on finance from opposition. It's your time to give your response. Yes, Honorable Member for Cholo Central, are you the one presenting? Yes, you have the floor. And just to remind you that you have 30 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and through you, allow me to thank the Democratic Progressive Party with our President, Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika, for entrusting me with the responsibility to respond to this year's budget as presented in this House by Honorable Simprex Chichola Banda, Minister of Finance, on the 28th of March 2025. In the same vein, allow me to thank the spokesperson on Finance, Honorable Joseph Manamveka, for indeed entrusting the people of Choro Central on the same. Madam Speaker, I come here to bury Caesar and not to praise him. This, Madam Speaker, were words of Mark Antony in a play by the Shakespeare. Truly, the 2025-2026 budget is full of fiction and drama. I therefore come here to bury the Malawi Congress Party and its unrealistic budget. I come here to bury the Malawi Congress Party because it has put Malawians in serious economic crisis. This is the last session of Parliament, and very soon, on 16th September, Malawians will be voting to bury the MCP and choose the next president. People will vote to replace the clueless government with a better DPP government. Malawians will be cheated by the Malawi Congress Party. The people are angry, Madam Speaker. The masses are protesting. Malawi Congress Party has messed the budget since the 2020. Surely there is no second chance for the Malawi Congress Party. Madam Speaker, since the 2020, the DPP has been providing constructive advices on how to manage the economy. But sadly, the Malawi Congress Party has chosen not to listen. The Malawi Congress Party opted to run the economy on their own MCP way. They deployed the new economic theory called the SOSISA, which was, and I believe, shall remain the most meaningless economic theory ever lived. It is this economic theory, Madam Speaker, which has resulted in the Malawi's debt skyrocketing from 4.4 trillion in 2020 to today's 16.8 trillion, with nothing to show on the ground. No wonder, Madam Speaker, Malawians from all walks of life are suffering. Malawians are crying. Indeed, people are regretting to have voted the Malawi Congress Party into government. Madam Speaker, it is for this reason that my budget response on behalf of the Democratic Progressive Party will also speak to the people's sufferings and the businesses that are shutting down. But let me also assure Malawians that soon in September, your sufferings will be over, as Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika is coming back with the proven leadership. The Democratic Progressive Party is coming back with better budgets to safeguard the economy. Broken promises and economic lies. Madam Speaker, the 2025-2026 budget has an economic context of the Malawi Congress Party broken promises and lies. Malawians were told by the MCP government that the economy would improve within 2 years. The people now are very well aware that it was a lie. Instead, the economy has worsened than where it was in 2020. Malawi has become chaotic and indeed in a very bad economic state. Fellow Malawians, Malawi Congress Party promised to reduce poverty. Now I ask you, fellow Malawians, has poverty reduced in the country? And the answer is no. 5 years since 2020, your poverty has worsened. The World Bank says that the poverty has increased as 71% of the population is living in extreme poverty. This is because the MCP is clueless and they have been sleeping on the job. Fellow Malawians, the Malawi Congress Party promised you that they will reduce the prices of fuel from 750 per litre that was then in 2020 to 500 kwacha. Today, fuel is selling at 2,730 per litre, which is 3 times the price DPP led in 2020. Does this in any way around symbolizes improved economy? No. Madam Speaker, the fuel crisis disruptions, it disrupted the government and the business operations. The fuel crisis created uncontrollable corrupt practices as vendors sold fuel at about 10,000 kwacha per litre. This is why we are saying the MCP must pack up and go, because they do not care about the sufferings of Malawians. They also promised to bring in 2,000 megawatts of electricity in 2025. We are in 2025 now, still far away from the targets. Road shedding and electricity power cuts are daily experienced, particularly in Lilongwe. For record purposes, the 19.1 megawatts Tezani, the 21 megawatts Sengeret are the DPP projects, including the Likoma solar system. In 2020, Madam Speaker, they promised they would create 1 million jobs. The youth, as everyone else can see, are struggling to get jobs, while thousands have lost their jobs. Instead of creating 1 million jobs, Madam Speaker, the MCP government has created job losses. Sadly, 800,000 jobs were lost by December 2024 as a result of close down of many companies, which includes but not limited to ADMAC, reduction of workers, PTC, and commodity exchange. Now, youth and fellow Malawians, is this what you promised? Fellow Malawians, MCP promised that you will buy a bag of fertilizer for 4,995. In their own terms, they knew where the fertilizers were manufactured, and that it is the manufacturers that assured them of the price 4,950. Clearly today, we can all conclude that the Malawi Congress Party lied, because a bag of maize today is selling at 140,000 kwacha a bag. Sadly, MCP has also been abusing money by paying billions of kwachas of AIP money in butcheries, pharmacies, and in some instances, not even getting fertilizer to come as planned. By the way, a farmer in Lilongwe did wonder whether we indeed have the Minister of Agriculture in this country. He wondered how, if we had the Minister of Agriculture, he would oversee distribution of fertilizer way out of its application period. Unfortunately, it has been the case almost the whole 5 years. Fellow Malawians, you should still demand answers from the government as to where the promised refund by the Attorney General to bring back the German AIP money, which they stole through the Bakata Food Limited from the UK is. Madam Speaker, the 2025 budget talks about progress in mega farms. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, most of the farms that we have are small ones that can surely bring not the much needed harvest as we were promised. In tourism, Madam Speaker, we demand answers from the Malawi Congress Party to boost tourism, with the promise of boosting tourism in the 2025-2026 budget. They promised to establish new Lake Malawi tourist cities in Karonga, Salima, and indeed in Mangochi. These districts are now full of roads with potholes, and where are the promised cities. Another failed promise is that of school fees. It is such a shame. The Malawi Congress Party promised that no student will fail to finish school due to lack of school fees. Today, we've got a lot of students being sent back from school because of the same thing, regardless of the increase in the loan fund within the loans board. They even promised to open the Mberwa University and enroll 500 students by August 2025. MCP has not delivered until today. Fellow Malawians, you have been promised lies in terms of rehabilitation of roads for the past 5 years since 2020. MCP has lied to you that you do construct and rehabilitate some roads which have become impassable, and others have developed potholes as we speak. Yet these roads that are crucial to the improvement of the economy of this country are in a bad state. Imagine, Madam Speaker, MCP found the two toll gates, Karieka and Chingen, in operation with clear vision to use the funds for the dualization of the Lilongwe-Blantyre Road. But 5 years down the line, nobody knows where the money collected has gone, as the road is now a death trap, as if it's not collecting any revenue. Another example, Madam Speaker, Chiweta Road in Rumpi is totally neglected. Madam Speaker, they promised the rehabilitation of the rail from Malacca in Sanje. I am here to report that the progress is at a very snail's pace, whilst costs are being inflated. Unfortunately, there are people milking from this very same project. Weak state of the economy. Madam Speaker, let me now turn to the weak state of the Malawi economy. Fellow Malawians, see how the Malawi Congress Party found a functioning extended credit facility, ECF. The program with the IMF, which the DPP left functioning in 2020. They have destroyed the IMF program, and we are out of target. We will no longer have the IMF program. It is pathetic that they cannot even finish a one-year successful implementation. What you did is very treasonous and criminal. Malawians are suffering today because of you. Let me advise my fellow politicians that you can do propaganda with any other subject you want, but not with the economy. At the IMF, there is no DPP government. Neither is there the Malawi Congress government. What is there is the Malawi government. Therefore, when you want to play around, you do not play around with the economy of the country. Fellow Malawians, you know that this country is now on autopilot, and it is on a dangerous path of declining and collapse. MCP promised to improve the economy. Fellow Malawians, has the economy improved as we speak now? The economy has since jetted back in their hands. The growth rate was 5.7% during the DPP administration in 2020. Sadly, growth rate under the Malawi Congress Party has been 4.6 in 2021, 0.9 in 2022, 1.5 in 2023, and 1.8 in 2024. Fellow Malawians, is this what you expected? Just imagine another 5 years for once with the Malawi Congress Party. Another 5 years. Surely these people will kill us. Fellow Malawians, inflation is killing this economy. For the past 5 years, the Malawi Congress Party has managed to kill the economy with inflation over 35% and food inflation over 44%. APM managed the inflation effectively, well such that the DPP administration left the inflation rate at the single digit of 6.8% in 2020. Madam Speaker, sadly, prices are rising every day, and this is why the Malawi Congress Party must go. Fellow Malawians, the nation budgets are also failing because the Malawi Congress Party is borrowing money from commercial banks at a very high interest rates. The Malawi Congress Party increased interest rates through the Reserve Bank of Malawi, which has hiked the policy rate to 26%. Madam Speaker, sadly, MCP is practicing political corruption from creating business opportunities for the few elites and enriching people who have connections within the party. Economic and budget comparison, DPP versus the MCP administration. Fellow Malawians, you will recall that when the DPP was governing, the able leadership of Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika created conditions for economic progress. Sadly, since 2020, Malawi Congress Party and the Tonsi have mercilessly destroyed and plundered the economy. Madam Speaker, Malawi was better under the APM. Fellow Malawians, you know very well that the cost of living was manageable under the DPP administration. Sadly, you are now daily experiencing a sharp rise in cost of living under the MCP. Madam Speaker, the APM administration strengthened public finance management strategies, and this helped to curb abuse of public funds. APM safeguarded against plunder and corruption. Madam Speaker, every Malawian can now see that the economy is in a state of collapse. Fellow Malawians by now also know that the MCP administration has failed to manage prices which are rising every day, whilst people's income are losing purchasing power by day. Salaries continues to lose value, and civil servants can no longer afford to pay necessities. Fellow Malawians, as you can see, you can no longer afford to pay basic needs such as food, house rentals, transport fares, payment of school fees of your children, and all that accompanies it. You know, fellow Malawians, that the cost of living was better and affordable under the DPP-led government. Madam Speaker, I wish to remind fellow Malawians that the prices of maize was only 8,000 kwacha per bag in June 2020 when the DPP left office. The APM administration made sure that the maize prices are available at affordable prices throughout the year. The DPP had maize available in ADMAC markets. Sadly, a bag of maize today is trading at 100,000 kwacha. Madam Speaker, let me now turn to specific performance by sector. Fellow Malawians, the health sector financing is experiencing serious challenges. Despite the establishment of pharmaceutical companies to manufacture generic drugs and other health equipment, no drugs are available in hospitals. When you go to hospitals, they will tell you that you go and buy drugs on your own. But I wish to assure you that APM is coming back. APM is a proven leader, and the DPP will sort out the mess. Madam Speaker, the 2025-2026 budget is silent on the increased funding to community technical colleges. To the students, let me say that the MCP has abandoned you. The technical colleges have been abandoned. Malawi Congress Party has no interest in the technical and vocation training for the youth. APM established the community technical colleges to create jobs. The DPP will stop this mismanagement of the colleges in September when APM gets back into government. Madam Speaker, in terms of governance sectors, you must be very worried because the MCP budgets continue to allocate inadequate funds to the ACB, the Physical Police, Ombudsman, and Financial Intelligence Authority. This is a deliberate move to weaken the anti-corruption drive. As we drive towards elections, Madam Speaker, we need proper funding and the operations of the Peace Commission, which is established to safeguard the peace we have in this country. Sadly, Madam Speaker, what was to be an independent body for the good of Mother Malawi is now being run as a program under a department in the peace and unity. It has no vote, and they have to be at the mercy of the PS for funding. And we expect them to go out and mitigate and manage peace in this country. What a joke. If the MCP government does not value peace, just go and abolish the Peace Commission as it is there on paper, but will not deliver anything at all. Be assured, fellow Malawians, that come 16th September, the DPP shall establish and properly constitute the Independent Peace Commission and will fund it in full. Fellow Malawians, MCP
Members, order on my right, order please.
Unrealistic budget, unrealistic 2025-2026 framework. Madam Speaker, the 2025-2026 budget framework does not inspire hope. It is unrealistic and hard to implement. I can only ask Malawians to be the final judges. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Planning has presented a rather too exorbitant budget of 8.5 trillion. The budget is too ambitious and unrealistic because the revenue generation is too low than even the 5.5 trillion. Fellow Malawians, you can see for yourself that this budget is a lie. The budget has a deficit of 2.7 trillion. Where will the money to fill the deficit come from? Again, borrowing is the only answer. Malawians, you must be worried because MCP is ready to put more debt burden on your shoulders and a yoke of debt around the neck of your children. Fellow Malawians, the 2025-26 budget is unrealistic due to its continuance over-reliance on donor support at a time global dynamics points to a heavy deduction on foreign aid. The budget is counting on the 1.4 trillion of donor grants. Recently, USAID announced closure. Unfortunately, we are yet to be addressed on how the government intends to manage job losses due to the cuts, with about 5,000 Malawians being affected. How they intend to fund the services that were being previously supported by the USAID. The UK government has to announce it will reduce budget spending where international development or foreign aid will experience cuts. Malawians, you must expect more economic troubles. And what kind of government is this that has got the guts to increase budget expenditure at a time when revenue is failing? Malawians, forget about the 2063, Malawi 2063. The structure of the 2025-2026 budget has little to offer in the implementation of the Malawi 2063 agenda. Good examples, Madam, of the indiscipline. The budget allocation to the State House, for example, the Office of the President and Cabinet has increased its allocation at the expense of development needs. Malawians, you can see that the State House budget has increased to an allocation of 67.3 billion. This is worrisome, especially in an election year where the State House activities can be disguised as political campaign purposes. The trend puts a question on austerity measures that are preached by the OPC, yet the presidency cannot walk the talk. Fellow Malawians, remember that the large budgetary increase of the State House does not support the developmental aspiration of the Malawi 2063. Similarly, OPC budget allocation has increased from 17 billion in 2022-2023 to 54.3 billion in the current budget of the 2025-2026. The office of the Vice President has been allocated 8.1 billion. Fellow Malawians, you can also observe that the combined allocation of the state residencies, the presidency, national intelligence, and OPC is over 150 billion. Sadly, this does not compare well with the small allocations made to sectors that have potential to create economic transformation as espoused under the Malawi 2063 agenda. Madam Speaker, with the general elections fast approaching, on the 16th September, elections campaign spending will likely to force the 2025-2026 budget to experience fiscal stress. Clearly, the MCP is planning to engage into more borrowing to finance these governance obligations. Sadly, the minister has announced revenue measures that are not convincing. Malawi Revenue Authority will struggle to meet its target of the 4.3 trillion. This is because of slow business activities due to lack of forex, electricity load shedding, and general economic environment. The future DPP ready to roll away the stone. Madam Speaker, let me remind Malawians of the words of the Catholic bishop in their recent pastoral letter. The bishop asked a question: who will roll away the stone for us? Fellow Malawians, the DPP is ready to roll the stone. Malawians who remove MCP. This is the time for the people to rise and show Malawians the exit door. The budget since 2020 have delivered nothing but lies. Madam Speaker, fellow Malawians, since 2020, MCP have delivered nothing but poverty. I urge Malawians and fellow Malawians to say enough is enough and call upon MCP to stop the political persecution inflicted on the masses. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, I would like to conclude by saying that the 2025-26 budget is a pack of lies and is a heap of senseless physical promises that will again not be delivered. MCP wishes to continue with the physical deceit and budgetary hypocrisy. Should Malawians tolerate this? Certainly no. Fellow Malawians, freedom is coming and is closer than we ever thought. Freedom is coming on the 16th September. APM is the trusted and proven leadership, and DPP will win as predicted by both the Economic Intelligence Unit as well as the Afrobarometer. With these few remarks, I wish to assure Malawians that the Democratic Progressive Party will bring you better budgets that will end your sufferings, and business will wake up again. DPP will stop the rising prices of goods and services and will put the economy back on its shape. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the mighty Democratic Progressive Party, I submit and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, spokesperson from DPP and honorable member for Cholo Central. I now call upon spokesperson on finance from UDF. Honorable member for Lilongwe City South, were you rising on a point of order, or you have the floor, Lilongwe City South?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for recognizing the people of Lilongwe City Southeast to stand on a point of order. Madam Speaker, as a duly elected member of Lilongwe City Southeast, I would want to find out from you if it is in order for the spokesperson who has resumed his seat, claiming to say that Malawians want DPP back. Madam Speaker, I'm coming from a constituency where we have Chipasura Road. Madam Speaker, even when the contractor was on the site, the road was already outdated. So I wanted to find out which Malawians is he talking about. Today, people are calling names for this government for Jibasura Road when they know that they did a mess up job. So I wanted to find out, is it in order for him to claim to say that Malawians want DPP back when we are struggling from the people that have contributed a lot in the socio-economic development of this country? So I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Lilongwe City South East. I think the Honorable Member was speaking on behalf of his own people that he's representing from his side. Thank you. Yes, Honorable Minister of Higher Education.
Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me a chance to ask. I just wanted to find out if it's in order for the submission that has been made to come from a person whose government left lots of bills that have been cleared and claim that there will be a solution when they are the fountain of this problem. They are talking of roads. The roads they left are a mockery. They cannot be called roads. And they mustn't be lying to Malawians. They are not a solution. In fact, they are a grievous harm to this nation. They borrowed money saying they will fix Kamuzu International Airport. They didn't do it. And they've not told this nation what they did with that money. So for them to come here, they don't have the moral authority to tell Malawians they are a solution. They are a curse. They are a nightmare we never want to see coming back. They must not come here and tell us that they are going to solve this problem. They caused this problem. They must not come here and masquerade as solutions. They are not solutions. DPP must never be matched together with solutions. They are a menace that Malawi will never ever go through again.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of Higher Education. Spokesperson from UDF.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for granting me and the United Democratic Front the opportunity to respond to the 2025-2026 financial year budget statement delivered in this August House by the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Honorable Simplex Shishalabanda MP, on Friday, the 28th February 2025. We do not take this opportunity for granted, Madam Speaker. As I proceed, permit me to register my gratitude to my youthful, beautiful President, Honorable Tupele Muluzi, for his selflessness, visionary leadership, and for having an unshakable love and commitment to the fight against poverty for the sole purpose of benefiting the people of Malawi. The UDF would love nothing more than seeing the people of Malawi having money in their pockets and seeing the people of Malawi become rich and financially free. This dream is totally achievable only with the UDF, Madam Speaker. The United Democratic Front has noted with concern critical issues with the 2025-2026 fiscal year budget under the theme Consolidating Gains, Strengthening Resilience and Inclusivity for Accelerated Socio-Economic Transformation. The UDF, having the social responsibility to providing practical and sustainable suggestions to the government on matters affecting our nation, takes this opportunity to propose lasting solutions to navigate the harsh economic challenges. We have also taken note that the national budget has recurring wrong assumptions about economic growth rates, year in, year out. This has also been acknowledged by the Honourable Minister in this budget statement. Madam Speaker, we are not convinced that economic transformation characterized by a 3.2% growth rate will be attainable based on the following 10 key issues. Foreign exchange imbalances. We are concerned about the prolonged imbalance of foreign exchange reserves due to the low capacity to export high-value goods and services. While we appreciate the latest measures taken by the Minister of Trade and Industry, Honorable Vitumiko Mbumba, through the Prohibition Order of 2025 to lower imports of products that can be produced locally, the UDF feels that local producers have neither been capacitated nor incentivized to meet the growing local demand for those foreign goods and services, thereby safeguarding the very local consumers and local industries the government is trying to protect. This may unfortunately lead to escalation in prices as the competition from cheaper and wholesale imports will have been eliminated. We, however, implore the government for enhancing foreign exchange control measures to safeguard the little forex that we have and to deal with the unscrupulous businesses and individuals who are fueling the illegal black market. Number two, unrealistic inflation rate estimates. Madam Speaker, the estimated inflation rate of 24% from the current 32.3% is rather unrealistic given the current high food inflation rate and an uncontrollable pricing regime which has held hard-working Malawians at ransom. The UDF is of the view that the government ought to have focused on addressing high food inflation through enhanced practical agricultural productivity. It is a matter of demand and supply. If maize grain was abundantly available, the food inflation rate would in response decrease. Number three, high borrowing costs. Madam Speaker, the UDF notes that the policy rate has been maintained at 26%, which means that the cost of borrowing remains high. When the UDF was in government, in 2020, the policy rate was not higher than 13.5%. Borrowing was cheap and wealth was well distributed. We should remember that the levels of domestic debt remain high, suggesting that the government has continued to borrow its own resources as well as crowding out the private sector, despite the UDF repeatedly warning the government against these two sins of economics. However, Madam Speaker, Blantyre-Mabla constituency, through its social enterprise, Ndirane Trust PLC, has benefited from borrowing from Mike 63 million kwacha at the rate of 11% via the Mega Farm project. Blantyre-Mabla constituency's Mega Farm stands to earn approximately a net profit of 500 million kwacha from the sales of the ginger from our 8-hectare farm. Number four, Madam Speaker, small and medium enterprises are hit hardest by these high borrowing costs as they grapple with delayed settlement of their invoices and rely on short-term borrowing to sustain their businesses. The SMEs hold the key to a better Malawi as they employ the largest number of Malawians, have the potential to boost export potential of our nation, thereby implementing the government's import substitution strategy. The challenges faced by SMEs in accessing affordable and on-time financing are rather systematic and require immediate deliberate policy to overcome them. Madam Speaker, we do not want to see a return of the tradition where one has to be assisted, who one is assisted has to be connected to a politician. Madam Speaker, number five, soaring public debt. Madam Speaker, we have noted that the level of public debt remains high and is expected to increase as the 2025-2026 budget has a deficit which will be financed by more borrowing. We acknowledge the efforts and the agreements made to restructure debt. We are, however, worried that the debt restructuring is only a strategy to create more room for more borrowing. The government's appetite for borrowing, we are worried even now that we have been since the dawn of multi-party because the government continues to borrow for consumption rather than for development. We therefore urge the government to use the resulting fiscal relief to allocate more resources towards the high-impact sectors which are crucial in addressing the foreign aid reserve imbalances. Number six, skilled resource allocation. Madam Speaker, we also note with concern that as a result of inadequate resource allocation towards the high-growth sectors of mining, tourism, and manufacturing, Non-tax revenues are low at 2.99 trillion. This has caused the government to largely depend on tax revenues, which has overstretched businesses and individuals alike. Number 7, over-reliance on foreign aid. Madam Speaker, we are also concerned about the over-reliance on foreign aid to finance our development expenditure. We are aware of the shift in policy by major donors, which puts our budget in jeopardy. This very assumption of continued support from such donors renders our whole budget unattainable. What was the point of going independent in 1964 if we are going to continue to rely on our donors instead of developing mechanisms to finance the development of our sovereign state through a surplus budget? Number 8, private sector support. Madam Speaker, the government must adopt new and effective tax reliefs and tax breaks for new businesses to promote productivity in priority sectors for exports. A thriving private sector will drive the economy upwards to achieve some balance in trade and bring stability to the macroeconomic environment. The government needs to start promoting fractional ownership, where the government will fund public limited companies and allow indigenous Malawians to purchase shares in these companies via the Public-Private Partnership Commission. This is where indigenous Malawians with brilliant startup ideas meet with experienced administration of the government. Number 9, regulatory enforcement. Madam Speaker, regulating the mining and tourism sectors are key to transforming our economy. These sectors require systematic investment and regulation to realize their full potential. We can no longer celebrate the development of mere policies and strategies as achievements when there is clear potential for these sectors to contribute towards the national purse. The government must begin to invest actively in infrastructure to attract both local and international tourists. Number 10, expenditure control. Madam Speaker, the UDF would like to urge the government to manage the available resources optimally to drive growth and tone down the optimism founded on realistic assumptions, because the budgets we have been making have not been realistic, and we have been implementing wrong budgets all along, and this is illegal. We believe we can achieve real economic transformation through risk-based and patriotic decisions. Number 11, patriotism. Madam Speaker, both the voters who are our employers and we who are their employees lack patriotism. The UDF would like to urge the government to put Malawi first and observe caution in the implementation of this final budget, because when the UDF comes into government on the 16th September 2025, we are going to implement these strategies. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, the UDF is concerned about the economic status of our nation. Malawi's economy revival remains a significant challenge, but a challenge we in the UDF are ready to take on head-on, as we did through the HIPP program we had obtained in the year 2000, which was implemented by the UDF government in the year 2006. This program, which saw the national debt being slashed from 3 trillion kwacha to a mere 800 billion kwacha. Madam Speaker, the UDF calls on the government to end the suffering of its citizens by taking bold steps to transform the economy. We realize that the nation is in deep suffering and needs concerted efforts from all of us, regardless of our political affiliations. We in the UDF understand the plight of our citizens, and we will continue to offer support and suggestions because we put Malawi first and its beautiful people. It would not be a complete budget if the Constituency Development Fund was not considered. A 10% increment reflects the government's commitment to promoting the social welfare and respond to the needs of the people, as the UDF is entirely the brainchild of our voters. Once again, Madam Speaker, I thank you for granting the UDF an opportunity to respond to the 2025 budget statement and suggest solutions that face our nation. God bless the UDF and God bless Malawi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, spokesperson from UDF. I now call upon the chairperson of the Budget Committee.
Madam Speaker, I rise today on behalf of the Budget Committee to present an analysis of the 2025-26 national budget that was ably presented by the Minister of Finance on 28 February 2025, and the strategic actions required for fiscal sustainability. Madam Speaker, our analysis has been thorough, reflecting deeply on both the economic challenges we face and the opportunities that lie ahead. Madam Speaker, firstly, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all members of my committee for their dedication and commitment over the past 2 weeks. I also extend my appreciation, Madam Speaker, to you and the Parliament Secretariat for the invaluable support provided to the committee during the budget session. General economic developments. Madam Speaker, let me begin by acknowledging developments in the global economy and sub-Saharan Africa region. The global economy remains on a steady course with a forecast growth of 3.3% for 2025 and 2026. And sub-Saharan Africa is projected to accelerate its growth to 4.1% in 2025. Malawi's outlook remains a cause for serious reflection. Our national growth projection of 3.2% for 2025 falls significantly short of the 6% target and lags behind our regional peers. This modest pace reflects deep-seated structural challenges, a fragile economic environment burdened by high inflation, the detrimental effects of drought on agriculture, and persistent shortages of foreign currency. On the monetary side, Madam Speaker, we have witnessed persistent inflationary pressures. The inflation rate increased from 28.8% in 2023 to 32.3% in 2024, with a projected decline to 24.0% in 2025. Yet, this remains far from our target of below 10%, Madam Speaker. Moreover, the rapid expansion of our monetary supply, growing to 41.5% in 2024, has only compounded these inflationary challenges as it far outpaced the growth of our real GDP. This divergence not only fuels demand-pull inflation, but also undermines the credibility of our monetary policy, a matter that demands immediate and disciplined action. Madam Speaker, on the external front, our heavy reliance on tobacco exports and donor aid is increasingly concerning. Although tobacco exports have risen to $45.3 million in January 2025, and donor aid has surged, this dependence exposes us to external shocks. Our foreign exchange reserves have been in steady decline, from $302 million in 2022 to a projected $193 million in 2024, worsening the depreciation of our currency. The official exchange rate, Madam Speaker, the alignments in 2022 and 2023 have failed to eliminate the parallel market, as persistent foreign exchange shortages continue to drive businesses towards unofficial channels where higher rates further fuel inflation. Madam Speaker, turning to fiscal matters, our fiscal policy remains at a critical juncture. The 2025-26 budget forecasts a deficit of 2.473 trillion Malawi, with the national debt now standing at 16.19 trillion Malawi as of September 2024. These figures not only constrain our ability to invest in much-needed development projects, but also elevate the risk of fiscal instability. Madam Speaker, the current state of our economy, though unfortunate, is not shocking. The committee has repeatedly highlighted persistent economic challenges, yet these issues continue to undermine our fiscal stability. There is growing concern over whether the proposed fiscal policy measures will sufficiently address the root cause of our financial distress, particularly the unsustainable levels of debt that continue to burden our nation. The failure to curb our borrowing appetite, even as government expenditures rise, is a matter of serious concern. Madam Speaker, furthermore, the lack of coordination at the national level continues to hinder effective economic management and growth. Since the launch of the Mega Farms project in 2022, its tangible achievements remain unclear. Yet in 2025, we still find ourselves allocating funds for maize imports, and similarly, universities such as Luana and MAST have been actively engaged in research on the local manufacturing and in organic fertilizer. However, as a nation, we have done little to support such initiatives, despite their potential to reduce reliance on imports and ease pressure on our limited foreign exchange reserves. Madam Speaker, one of our greatest weaknesses has been our failure to address urgent matters with the necessary sense of urgency. Allocating resources to well-structured projects with clear timelines, particularly those that directly combat hunger and reduce import dependency in the short term, would have been a more strategic approach while working towards a long-term solution. Unfortunately, as a nation, we have struggled with a lack of focus and frequently misplaced priorities. Madam Speaker, our resource envelope is already small, yet we continue to spread ourselves too thinly across too many initiatives without tangible results. It is imperative, Madam Speaker, that we take a more disciplined and strategic approach to resource allocation, focusing on initiatives that yield meaningful outcomes for our people. It is only through such decisive action that we can place our economy on a sustainable path and secure a better future for our nation. Now, Madam Speaker, allow me to provide an analysis of the performance of the 2024-25 budget. Madam Speaker, the committee reviewed the, let me take that again, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the committee's review of the 24-25 budget performance reviewed a revenue shortfall, with total revenue and grants expected at 4.351 trillion Malawi kwacha, falling short of the revised estimate by 5.93%. This shortfall is largely attributed to an 8.3% underperformance in tax revenues, which fell to 71.2 billion Malawi kwacha, below the revised budget target. On the expenditure side, Madam Speaker, the committee noted that the 2024-25 preliminary expenditure outturn of 6.14 trillion Malawi kwacha exceeded the mid-year revised budget by 103.73 billion Malawi kwacha, representing a 1.7% over expenditure. Notably, Madam Speaker, the preliminary outturn for elections-related expenses was 94.5 billion kwacha, which is 53.7% higher than the revised budget provision of 61.5 billion kwacha. While the committee appreciates the fact that electoral activities are crucial and time-bound, it is not impressed with such magnitude of cost escalation. Electoral calendar activities are foreseeable and should have been adequately provided for even during the mid-year budget review. Madam Speaker, the revenue underperformance and expenditure overruns has resulted into a budget deficit increasing by 379 billion Malawi kwacha from a revised estimate of 1.414 trillion Malawi kwacha to 1.793 trillion Malawi kwacha preliminary outturn. This shortfall has been financed through domestic borrowing, further worsening the country's already fragile debt position and undermining fiscal sustainability. The committee reiterates the urgent need for fiscal prudence, strict expenditure controls, and prioritization of resources. Furthermore, the committee underscores the need to strengthen domestic revenue mobilization by conducting a thorough review of the domestic revenue mobilization strategy. Enhancing efficiency in revenue collection is crucial for reducing reliance on debt financing and improving fiscal stability. Madam Speaker, I will now turn to the committee's analysis of the 2025-26 proposed budget. Madam Speaker, government has prepared the 2025-26 budget with the expectation that it will collect total revenues of 5.578 trillion mileage during this period. This represents a 28.2% increase from the 2024-25 revised estimate of 4.351 trillion mileage. Of the projected total revenues, 79.5% are domestic revenues, while 20.5% are grants. Domestic revenue is expected to reach 4.435 trillion mileage, covering only 51.1% of total expenditure. Alarmingly, domestic revenue will only finance just 73% of recurrent expenditures, meaning essential obligations such as wages, interest payments, and social benefits will rely either on external grants or borrowing, posing serious fiscal sustainability risks. Despite the 8.3% underperformance, tax revenues are projected at 4.329 trillion mileage, a 32.9% increase from the revised estimate. The committee calls the government to explain the strategies that have been put in place to realize this optimistic projection. Madam Speaker, non-tax revenue estimates are pegged at 106.018 billion cash. The committee observed that the contribution of non-tax revenue to total revenue contributes to record subdued values, putting more pressure on tax revenue as the main source of revenue. This underscores the continued need for reform in this area to improve revenues collected. The committee acknowledged the government's efforts to digitize payments and will continue to monitor its realization. Grants, Madam Speaker, the committee observed that are projected to decrease by 7.78% from the likely outturn of 1.250 trillion mileage in 2024-25 to 1.142 trillion mileage. This decrease is largely driven by a drop in commitments from international organizations. The committee is also concerned about the recent volatility in foreign financing, with some donors, such as you said, having already withdrawn funding. These donors have historically supported critical programs, particularly in the health sector. The committee therefore seeks an update on the government's strategy to mitigate the impact of aid withdrawal and ensure the continuity of essential services. Before I move to expenditure projections, Madam Speaker, allow me to provide the committee's analysis of the new tax policy measures. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister announced a number of tax measures, specifically income tax measures. The reduction of corporate income tax for foreign incorporated companies from 35% to 30% may attract foreign investment, but is likely to reduce tax revenue in the short term, raising concerns about fiscal sustainability. VAT adjustments. Removal of VAT on bread, buns, and confectionaries is expected to ease financial burdens on households. The committee urges strict enforcement to ensure that price reductions are reflected at the consumer level. The committee would like to recommend that the removal of VAT on bread be at 0 rating rather than exemption, to enable the producers to claim the input VAT. Further to this, lessons must be learned from the cooking oil VAT removal, where prices continued rising due to production cost factors, limiting consumer benefits while reducing government revenue. Regarding customs and excise tax measures, Madam Speaker, duty-free clearance of irrigation equipment is commended as a crucial intervention to improve agricultural productivity amid climate-related challenges, as this country is an agro-based economy. Reduced import duty on amusement park construction materials aligns with efforts to stimulate tourism investment under the ATM strategy. Elimination or reduction of excise tax on hybrid vehicles is expected to promote eco-friendly transport, but may increase forex pressure due to higher demand for vehicle imports. The committee urges close monitoring of its fiscal impact. Introduction of over a 25% import duty on motor vehicle engines is expected to generate additional revenue due to a rising trend of engine replacements. Higher excise tax on e-cigarettes, 20%, and plastic bags from 10% to 250%, saves more as a restrictive environmental and public health measure than a revenue-generating tool. Removal of duty-free clearance for COVID-19 products is aligned with global health developments and is not expected to significantly impact revenue. The committee acknowledges the rationale behind these tax measures, but urges the government to ensure that revenue-enhancing strategies are strong enough to offset potential losses in the short term. Proper enforcement and close monitoring will also be essential to ensure intended benefits reach consumers while maintaining fiscal sustainability. I will now discuss, Madam Speaker, the total projected expenditure for 2025-26 financial year. Madam Speaker, expenditure in the 2025-26 proposed budget continues its upward trajectory. It is poised to increase to 8.1 trillion from a 2024-25 revised estimate of 6.1 trillion Malawi kwacha, representing an increase of 2 trillion Malawi kwacha. In contrast, revenues are proposed to only grow by 952.21 billion Malawi kwacha. This implies a widening fiscal gap and further worsens an already unsustainable debt burden. The committee therefore reiterates the urgent need for fiscal discipline, prioritization of expenditure, and enhanced revenue generation to ensure long-term sustainability. Madam Speaker, recurrent expenditure is projected at 6 trillion kwacha, now accounting for 75% of the total budget, up from 73.6% in 2024-25. Compensation to employees and interest payments have continued to claim a significant part of the recurrent expenditures. The committee's analysis revealed that mandatory expenditures continue to erode fiscal space for productive and social sector spending. This underscores the urgent need for prudent expenditure control. Madam Speaker, wages and salaries are set to increase by 256.34 billion kwacha, 20.08%, to 1.533 trillion Malawi kwacha. This includes 10 billion for recruitment and 176 billion for Malawi kwacha for salary increments. Given the rising wage bill, the committee seeks assurance from the government that all salary adjustments are fully budgeted for to prevent immediate financial pressures. Public debt interest, Madam Speaker, payments are projected to rise by 715.816 billion kwacha. That's for 9.2% to 2.172 trillion Malawi kwacha, consuming 27% of the total budget. This further erodes fiscal space and diverts funds from productive sectors. The committee's scrutiny of interest payments reveals that domestic debt continues to place a heavy burden on the budget. Domestic debt payments are projected at 2.11 trillion Malawi kwacha, accounting for 97.2% of the total debt charges, and an increase from 94.5% in the previous financial year. And finally, Madam Speaker, the proposed debt financing for the 2025-26 financial year is poised to worsen the situation, as domestic borrowing is expected to finance 94.1% of the total budget deficit, up from 89% last year. It is projected to increase by 1.109 trillion Malawi kwacha, from 1.218 trillion to 2.237 trillion. Madam Speaker, besides unsustainable debt charges, domestic borrowing has contributed to increased money supply, which contributes to worsening inflation. The committee has repeatedly declared this feature's strength and calls the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs to provide detailed debt management strategies with clear and actionable timelines being implemented to restore fiscal stability. Madam Speaker, development expenditure is projected at 2.02 trillion, a 27.1 increase from the 24-25 revised estimate of 1.624 trillion Malawi kwacha. The committee recalls that in 2024-25 development allocations were revised downwards due to contractual challenges. The minister must outline measures to prevent similar setbacks and ensure timely project implementation. Madam Speaker, the fiscal deficit is projected to rise to 2.472 trillion Malawi kwacha in 2025-26, a 37% increase from the 2024-25 likely outturn of 1.792 trillion. Domestic borrowing will cover 94.1% of the deficit, while foreign borrowing will finance only 5.8% 5.87%. The committee warns that excessive domestic borrowing would drive up interest payments, further straining public finances and economic stability. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, the budget overlooks key expenditures, including CDF, MPs' loans, personal emoluments for 36 additional members of parliament, resulting from increased number of constituencies which remain unfunded. This omission will likely widen the fiscal deficit at mid-year. The committee urges the government to incorporate these allocations upfront for a more accurate fiscal outlook. Madam Speaker, allow me to touch on selected sectors. In the tourism sector, Madam Speaker, the committee notes that government efforts have been made to launch campaigns in the UK, the US, Germany, and Netherlands to promote Malawi's tourist attractions. However, there was no indication of the costs associated with these campaigns. The committee wishes to be informed about the fiscal impact these campaigns have on the contribution of tourism revenue to Malawi. Madam Speaker, in the mining sector, the committee notes in the policy statement that the sector was allocated 14.2 billion, which the committee understands is intended for the establishment of the Malawi Mining Investment Company and the Mines and Minerals Regulatory Authority. The committee commends the government for signing agreements with foreign investors, yet it laments that insufficient efforts are made regarding artisan agreements, which are being neglected. The committee recommends that the government incentivize local artisans by providing competitive prices to prevent the externalization of minerals such as gold. Summary of key recommendations. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I would like to emphasize the committee's key recommendations for the 2025-26 budget. Number one, enhance revenue mobilization and fiscal discipline. The government should implement targeted revenue enhancing measures, including broadening the tax base, improving compliance, and addressing inefficiencies in tax collection. At the same time, expenditure growth must be controlled by prioritizing essential services and cutting non-productive spending to reduce fiscal impasses. Two, strengthen debt management and reduce domestic borrowing. Given that unsustainable rise in public debt, the government should limit domestic borrowing and instead explore concessional financing options. It must also implement a clear debt repayment strategy to prevent excessive interest burdens from crowding out critical expenditures. Number three, improve budget transparency and accuracy. Future budgets must include all anticipated expenditures from the outset, such as provision of the newly elected members of parliament and other statutory obligations. This will prevent mid-year budget overruns and ensure a more accurate fiscal outlook. Four, monitor and enforce tax policy adjustments. The government should establish a strict monitoring mechanism to ensure that tax exemptions, such as the removal of VAT on bread and buns, result in actual price reductions for consumers. Additional revenue impacting tax incentives, like corporate tax reductions, should be reviewed periodically to assess their effectiveness in stimulating investment without compromising revenue collection. Five, as a measure to enhance revenue generation, the committee calls for continued government support towards the Malawi Revenue Authority. The government should prioritize funding towards ICT infrastructure, purchase of new scanners, renovations of offices, and also construction of some staff houses. Six, strengthening fiscal policy and debt management. The committee urges the government to strengthen fiscal policy by curbing excessive expenditures, prioritizing investments in revenue generation, and implementing prudent debt management strategies to ensure fiscal sustainability. Seven, improve cash management and prioritization of funding. The committee urges the government to improve the cash management system to align with the various activities of MDS. Essential and productive activities need to be well prioritized to ensure effective implementation. Eight, enhancing budget flexibility and fiscal space. Given the rising share of statutory expenditures, the committee emphasizing the need for prudent expenditure controls and effective debt management to preserve fiscal space and maintain budget flexibility for productive and social sector allocation. 9, not 7, but 9. Addressing the rising public debt interest charges. Madam Speaker, the committee underscores the need for assertive debt management strategies to curb the rapid growth of interest payments and mitigate their long-term impact on fiscal space. The Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs is urged to provide detailed debt management strategies with clear and actionable timelines to restore fiscal stability. 10. Mitigating the impact of aid volatility. The committee seeks an update on the government's strategy to address the volatility in foreign financing and mitigate the impact of donor withdrawals, particularly on critical programs such as those in the health sector. 11, Madam Speaker, strengthening agricultural resilience. The committee urges the government to prioritize investment in irrigation infrastructure to mitigate the impact of erratic rainfall and climate shocks. 12, addressing the high cost of inputs. The committee urges the government to support local production of agricultural input, e.g. fertilizers and seeds, to reduce dependence on imports and foreign forex. It therefore requests an update on the fertilizer production company highlighted in MIP 1. 13, attracting investment in mining and tourism sectors. The committee calls the government to outline specific investment strategies to boost investor confidence and unlock capital for mining and tourism development. Growth in the sector requires a stable and predictable macroeconomic and regulatory framework to attract long-term private and foreign direct investment. 14, governance to enable service delivery. Two of the conditionalities of for JSID funding are: 1, that government is going to disperse DDF in full to local authorities, and 2, that DDF allocation is increased by the CPI each year. It is on these conditions that the committee urges that the 7.6 billion DDF allocation be ring-fenced and dispersed in full to unlock the JSID funds. 15, in conclusion, Madam Speaker, as we stand at this critical economic juncture, it is imperative that we move beyond rhetoric and take decisive action to address the deep-seated fiscal and structural challenges facing our nation. Madam Speaker, the choices we make today will determine whether Malawi embarks on a path of sustainable growth or continues to struggle under the weight of rising debt, inflation, and economic uncertainty. Madam Speaker, the Budget Committee remains committed to ensuring fiscal prudence, transparency, and accountability in the management of public resources. We urge the government to heed these recommendations, take bold but responsible policy decisions, and implement targeted reforms that will stabilize the economy, enhance revenue generation, and prioritize investments that yield tangible benefits for all Malawians. Let us work together with urgency, discipline, and unwavering commitment to securing a stable and prosperous future for our nation. Madam Speaker, on this note, I wish to thank you and the House for your attention. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Budget. Honorable members, looking at the time, we're supposed to get chairpersons for clusters, but looking at the time, I want to suspend the House to go for health break, and the chair for health are here. You ready? Yes, so we'll go straight to a cluster on the health, chaired by Honorable Member for Chiradzulu West. And hopefully the other chairpersons are also looking at their reports, just to make sure their reports are ready. Honorable members, it is 27 minutes past 3. I now suspend proceedings for health break. We shall resume sitting. Before I do that, sorry, I had an announcement. We have visitors in the visitors gallery. These are Pastor Zulu and Evangelist Daudi. They are visitors from Mtiliza Ward, Lilongwe City West constituency, belonging to Honorable Commissioner Zulu. Can you please stand so that we welcome you in the house? Most welcome, Pastor and Evangelist. Welcome to Parliament of Malawi. Honorable members, it is 28 minutes past 3. I now suspend proceedings for health break. We shall resume sitting at 4 o'clock. House suspended.